Welcome to Spill the Beans. This channel is about bringing you, the consumer, into the world of Malaysian F&B. We Malaysians drink 36 million kilos of coffee each year. But haven't you always wondered, what makes a good cup of coffee? To answer this question, we talked to 3-time Malaysian Barista champion Shaun Liew and 2-time Malaysian Brewers Cup champion Shaun Liew. This week, let's spill the beans on what makes a good cup of coffee, starting with
Specialty coffee is about transparency, where quality is the main concern, knowing from each chain of hand, from farmers all the way to us as a barista. The quality is being taken care from processing, picking the cherries, and then moving on to logistic and sending over to roasters, where beans are being roasted to bring out the best balance of sweetness, acidity, even bitterness in a very rounded way. And then final hand, which is us as the barista. So we are the hands that actually pass on this cup of coffee to each consumer.
You can actually taste whether it's a good cup of coffee based on the quality. You are able to detect whether the flavors are positive flavors, but you can also detect negative flavors and identify whether it's from the roasting profiles or it could also be from the processing at the farm level. When I was at the farm 3 years ago, I was actually able to detect coffees that have defects, generally from the greens, not even from the processing, but more from the farm side, where it was actually infected with disease. So you can actually see it's quite apparent on the bean color. So from there, as a producer, they actually work backwards to remove that from their coffee and then basically only pick the best ones to be actually sold to the customers.
For roasting, of course, there's a whole process where it's called Maillard reaction. This is sugar browning. So basically turning a green bean into a brown beans is whereby it's going through in a roasting machine, a specific roasting machine just for coffee, and roasting through different development. That part is actually a very sophisticated process where we need to ensure that each particles or the carbohydrates in the beans itself being roasted, not overburn it, but just to highlight the best sweetness and also to bring out a well-rounded acidity into the coffee. Every producer has their own, I would say, a processing farm where they will have their farmers to pick the cherries and go through a stage where it's called as a processing method for the coffee. Can go through a natural process, a wash process, or a honey process. These three are the very main, I would say, processing for coffee itself. After processing, the beans are dried on a bed or on the ground itself for a period of time, and then they will be stored in a warehouse and wait for, I would say, the buyers to come and get the dried beans. And then moving on, I think is the logistic, where there will be a trader. This trader, it's kind of like a middle person getting the coffee itself and then trade it to different roasters throughout the whole country. So that is the most basic way, but also there's another part where we call as direct trade, whereby the roaster works directly with the farmer itself.
Subsequently, from the roaster side, they roast the coffees and then hands it over to us as a barista, and we'll be able to actually calibrate the coffees and then serve it to our customers.
Basically, calibration is when the technical skills come in. The barista comes in the morning, put the coffee in the grinder, adjusts the grind size and extracts the coffee. So whenever we change every parameter, that is what we call calibration, in order to bring out the best coffee that we can.
So a good cup of coffee has a good amount of sweetness, a very rounded acidity, and also a pleasant finish on the palate. We as baristas are able to calibrate for the customers, because ultimately they are the main drive of why we are here. We want to make sure that we always deliver a good cup of coffee to them so that they can always be our returning customers.
For me, I think a good cup of coffee is like a coffee with a lot of bursting flavors inside. Because for me, specialty coffee and a good coffee contains more than just coffee itself, just coffee flavor. Because It's going to be fruity, there's some acidity going on. So all this is where what makes a good cup of coffee interesting and special. Something I will enjoy.
Yep, that's right.
Next week on Spill the Beans, we explore the differences between kopitiam coffee and cafe coffee. We talk to a top Malaysian coffee roaster, and we find out what is single origin coffee. If you like what you see, just click subscribe. See you next week.